Playing the role of Kelly Francis tonight, it's John Nelson.
Thank you, Johnny. It's time for the run-up, Conca Champions style. If I could get my upper plate to work at this late hour. It is Jason, it is John, it is Jarrett hanging out for the official preview here on SDH as we get you ready for the first leg between Atlanta United and Philadelphia Union. It is going to be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, maybe a little after, with television and the introductions that are added therein. We're going to be with you here for the next half hour, looking at the two teams, looking at the matchup, look at Conca Champions and see what else is going on. If you got questions and you're watching us live as we're talking about it, send it us on the Twitch pitch, and we'll be keeping an eye on the Twitch pitch tonight. Questions, concerns, thoughts about Atlanta United coming out of MLS weekend, Philadelphia coming out of MLS weekend, coming up on short rest, very short rest, and getting ready to take on each other in CONCACAF Champions League. Gentlemen, welcome. It's another game that we get to talk about involving Atlanta United and the Champions League.
It's going to be a tough one. Philadelphia was really impressive against Saprissa. They were not so impressive against Miami on the weekend. They're not quite 100%. There are still some questions on what Jim Curtin's team's going to look like this year. I mean, Mark McKenzie just won the Belgian Cup. He's not there. Are they okay in the back? Brendan Aronson's not there. Anthony Fontana hasn't really impressed. He's actually lost the starting spot. That's my biggest thing going into this is what does the starting lineup look like for Philly? I don't know, and Jim Curtin didn't really give you anything today in the media availability.
Jared, as we're
go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say, I'm tossing to you. What's on your mind for the introduction as we're getting ready for the quarterfinals?
You know, Curtin talks about you put things on hold for this, and to what degree does that happen? Because you rolled a first team lineup out there against Miami in a game that you lost. Not the end of the world. I mean, the beginning of the season isn't going to sway U.S. Open Cup like you thought it would. Still not a great result, and still not a great result in going into to CONCACAF Champions League. You know, we talk about this in Europe. It's like you'd like to actually have something positive to roll into a Champions League game on. You don't really have that. You know, if you're Philadelphia, you're rolling in. I think you're leaning hard, especially with injuries mounting up. Of, hey, Casper, you got any magic left in those legs of yours that you want to throw out here? Because this is a road game for them. It starts in Atlanta. And, you know, we've talked about the home road splits before with CONCACAF Champions League, how you approach each one. I am of the preference. I think I prefer to play my home leg the first leg. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I would rather play my home leg first and have a chance to, as Nuke LaLoosh would say, to announce my presence with authority.
So basically, you want to put a number on the board and have the other team chase after it in the second leg. That's how you're looking at it.
Yeah, and I that's how I look at it. And that's especially if I'm Atlanta, that's kind of how I'm looking at this with the defense and what you've seen from the defense. Also, the very kind goalposts of Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's how I'm looking at this personally. Is I want to put a number on the board and I want to dare them to beat Miles Robinson, possibly Alan Franco, but probably Anton Walks. I want to put a number on the board and dare them to beat that in Philadelphia.
So, you know, Jason, we look at Philadelphia, and Jim Curtin had said at his media availability that they're putting CONCACAF Champions League in as a priority, yet you have pretty much a first-choice lineup going up against Inter Miami, and Jamiro Montero gives you a goal on the board, but then you're defeated by the Stereo Higuains. And
That's
it's 2-1 Inter Miami, and Gonzalo.
That's beautiful. I'm keeping that. I'm using that.
Stereo Higuains. And so 2-1 at Subaru Park in the home opener. So you've got a first choice lineup there. You lose, and then you're having to travel down to Atlanta on short rest.
Yeah, I mean, you're early in the season, so it shouldn't be a problem with fitness at this point. I don't think that's going to be a concern for Jim Curtin or the Union. I just don't know if he's settled on what his best lineup is at the moment. We've seen Jamiro Montero play as that 10. I think he's maybe better suited in a perfect world to playing as one of the 8s in the diamond, and that's the story of this match for me, is they play a 4-4-2 diamond. It's not a formation that I believe anybody in Argentina played against Vélez Sarsfield in Gabriel Heinze's time there. Not anybody that I could find. So the rules we've talked about with them playing 2 up top, you're going to play 3 in the back. Okay, that part, easy to solve. But it's not like the flat midfield that Alajuelense played. So they're going to have 4 central midfielders. It's hard enough when you're playing a 4-3-3 and you've got 3 central midfielders. You can kind of have people tuck in. You can deal with it that way. But if you're going to play a 3-4-3 and have 2 central midfielders, you're going to get overrun by 4. So how do you deal with that? Do you go diamond? Which you could. You could go 3-4-3 with a diamond centrally if you want to match them and try to nullify that. How do you spin that? I don't know. Like, this is going to be really different. It's not just going to be, in my opinion, a revamp of what you did against Alajuelense, because the midfield is so different. And I thought Gabriel Heinze kind of alluded to that today in his media availability. He talked about how the way Philly plays is very unique, and it's going to be a big challenge for them. So where do you feel like you can find the advantages, and what do you feel like you have to protect when you create this structure? The 3-4-3 you played against Alajuelense will have a serious problem against Philadelphia's midfield. It will be a huge issue. Heinze said, and I'm translating it, he said, Philadelphia has very internal positions, like a lot of central guys. And it's complex because it puts a lot of people in the middle. You can see that it's a team that is very well worked and knows what it's playing at. That's tough. You've got the personnel to do it. You can, but you haven't worked on it. You didn't really have any time to prepare. So what is going to be the best way to deal with this? I don't know. I'm really curious to see what the lineup is. I'm even more curious to see what it looks like at kickoff.
And we do have some folks who are asking questions on the Twitch pitch. We'll get into that in just a little bit. But Jarrett, when we look at Gabriel Heinze, in the limited time that we've been around him and seen him as Atlanta United head coach, these to me are the kind of challenges someone that is as, someone who's as locked into the game as he is. These are the kind of challenges that someone like this revels in, I would think.
I would think so. I said there's a couple ways I think you can go about dealing with this, but the same thing we talk about in the playoffs back at a better time when Major League playoffs still functioned as God intended with 2 legs. This is 180 minutes of game time. And we've talked about this with Alajuelense. What you do for the first 90 minutes here is going to mean a lot. Just got over talking about, whether you want to start at home or whether you want to start on the road. But the first 90 minutes is going to be interesting. And then how do you adjust for the second 90 minutes? How does Philadelphia counter adjust? That doesn't even get into the adjustments that are going to happen in the game as you try and find space, as you try and figure out how you're going to try and create space. Do you see that, hey, they're going to clog the middle like that? What if, if Atlanta's trying to skip lines with long diagonals and get into that space behind, in front of the left or right backs, behind the midfield, but in front of the backs there, and find that space. How well, and Jason, I'll toss this to you, how well does that work when you've got an Atlanta team that, and this is the first time we've seen it in person the other night, Saturday night, where we were all 3 in the building. Atlanta's going to use every square inch of that field and stretch things out so much. A gummed up midfield, how does that work against a team like Atlanta that might just try and stretch you out as far as the boundaries can let them?
I can't wait to see what this plays like. I mean, for anybody who gets interested in tactical setups, this could be a really fascinating watch. The more I think about it, I do wonder if he goes diamond in his midfield, Gabriel Heinze. Philly will do what Philly does. Like, Philly won't change. They're going to play their game. They'll change personnel. No. They'll change personnel, which will give it different flavors, but they won't change formation. You don't have Ilsinho. He's out hurt, and that would be the one thing that they'll usually change formation for. to accommodate him. So I think they'll stay the 4-4-2 because it's difficult for Atlanta to deal with because they want to spread the game wide. Philly wants to keep it all central. So I see, Gustavo, I disagree. Like, Gabriel Heinze changed against Alajuelense. He will adjust his setup. He won't change the way he plays. I think that's the important thing. I'm with you on that. He won't change wanting to get the ball wide. He won't change wanting possession. He won't change the pressing when they lose possession. Those things are every formation he plays. But you've got to be concerned about two central midfielders against their four. I don't think he'll go with that. I think he'll, at a minimum, do 3-5-2, which would give you a midfield triangle against their diamond. And probably with two holding midfielders to give you a little bit more of a base. You've got Sosa and Ibarra there. You know, you could see a lineup, and this is uncharted. This is not the Alajuelense, remix. So you could bring Alan Franco in and play Walks, Robinson, and Franco as your three center backs. You could play Sosa and Ibarra as your two holding midfielders. That gives you a good base to deal with their front two and their number 10, and even potentially one of the 8s, or two of the 8s if you want to be a little more ballsy on it. You could play Barco as the 10 in that scenario if you want, and play Moreno and Joseph up top. And then you've got your wingbacks, which my guess would be Gurr on the right because Lennon's out hurt, and Bello on the left. That could work. The one thing you would want to make sure with Gurr and with Bello is they're comfortable coming inside if they need to. Because you're going to potentially need them to do that to change the way you're playing if you're having problems with all their central midfielders, or just to deal with the numbers. So you've got to make sure that they're good with that. Maybe it wouldn't be a shock if Mikey Ambrose got the start. Because of that, I think he's more comfortable coming inside. We've seen it a little bit at different points in his time in Atlanta. We saw it in preseason against Xolos. He played as a center back. Saw it a little bit with the twos when he would tuck into the central just a little bit. I don't know. I can't wait to see what it looks like. I don't, and Burns says 4-2-3-1. Maybe, and it could be a modified 3-6-1 if Sosa's sitting really deep. Like, you've got a lot of different ways to do it. You just don't want to get overrun with their four midfielders. That presents a very unique problem.
Yeah, because Jared, the biggest thing that Jason has always said, Jared, is make sure that you've got one more guy defending than they have attacking.
And to kind of get ahead of that up the field, and something we've talked about and something you can watch, I think it's going to be important that when Atlanta does have possession, that play ends with a shot or a ball out of bounds. I don't want, depending on how Atlanta's going to spread out and kind of stretch things out, I don't want a cheap turnover in the middle where Philadelphia can get out on a counter and get those numbers rolling downhill. And you've got guys, spread out on offensive set, and they got to collapse in while also keeping track of runners that might be making late runs on the outside. It's the same thing that we talked about during the Frank DeBoer era, and however many people do or don't want to talk about it and think about it. You want those possessions to end with a shot, with a foul, with a ball out of bounds, whatever it may be, to give you a second to make sure that you've got people in the right place so you don't get overrun.
Can I revamp my lineup now that I think about it, Jared? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm processing.
It took a minute, but I started thinking about some of the things as you were saying, like what you want to do to spread the field, and you're not going to be able to do that as much if you do 3-5-2. You could if you do 3-4-3, and it's not common that you see a diamond midfield in a 3-4-3, but you're playing a diamond midfield. Let's do it. So, same back line that I said, Walks, Robinson, Franco. I think you get him in. Sosa's the base of your diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Ibarra and Hindman are your two 8s. Barco is the point of the diamond. Moreno and Dom or Mulroney on the other side, and Joseph up top. Because what that gives you is you're matched up with their midfield. You've got one more center back than they've got forwards. So you're good there. You've got 7 against their 6. But then you've got the width. So what you do is you prevent, and this has been such a huge part of Atlanta United this season, you prevent Kai Wagner especially, from getting forward. You've got to keep him pinned in. And Biso to a lesser degree on the right side, but Kai Wagner is such a huge part for Philadelphia. You keep him pinned. I am sold on Moreno out wide, Joe Bost. I am. I think he's been very important, even when he hasn't won all of his dribbling challenges. He's been important in pinning players. Huan didn't hurt you against Orlando. Boris Sekulic didn't get forward as much for Chicago. Those are two very important things. I would even potentially move Moreno over to the right side to deal with Kai Wagner. You want to keep Kai Wagner pinned in. I go 3-4-3 with a diamond midfield. And you've got to get Sosa, Heinemann, Ibarra to understand their roles in it. Barco's very free in his. I think he'll be fine. But the back triangle of your diamond, you've got to make sure they're understanding. You've got to deal with probably Montero, Fontana, and Bedoya. You've got to lock them up. Can't let them hurt you.
Okay, just so let's recap your processing here. So once again, at the back, Walks, Miles, and Franco.
Yes.
Then your midfield diamond is Sosa, obviously, as you're holding Ibarra, Heinemann, Barco at the tip.
Yep.
And then Moreno, Dom on Moreno on one side, or possibly moving to the right with Dom, and then Joseph up top is at the point of the spear.
At the point of the three, I'll show you really fast the way I think it would look if you're attacking.
Okay.
So
think of it as Sosa, Ibarra, and
three center backs, Diamond, Barco's here, wide wingers, Joseph up here. Because what you do with them is they've got their diamond, which basically you are matching. So you're saying you're not going to beat us with that. And then they've got their line of four. So you want to pin these guys, make them have to sit deep. You want Joseph to occupy the two center backs. You're going to nullify their diamond, and your three center backs are going to beat their two. You're expecting these two to pin them in, their outside backs. You want your wingers to pin their outside backs, and you're expecting them to win more often than not in the 1v1s and create opportunities for you. And you're expecting Barco to outplay Jose Martinez. That could be the matchup that decides it.
Okay.
And you could be dealing with looking at, and this to me goes back to making sure things don't end in a cheap turnover.
Yep.
But a guy like an Emerson Heinemann making that late run into the box to provide something to kind of unbalance Philadelphia as they kind of settle into a defensive set.
You could flatten their diamond out, is what you want to do. You want to make, and Heinemann, and in this case, Heinemann and Ibarra could be the two who do it. You make Bedoya and Montero have to sit more to deal with those late runs from Heinemann and Ibarra when he can, and you make those two not be able to get into the attack. So then, if you pin Wagner in, and you make Montero and Bedoya have to sit deeper, all Philly really has at that point is two forwards up high and a teenager who has started, like 7 or 8 games in his MLS career, in Anthony Fontana. You like your odds there. I mean, you're trying to create superiority. You're trying to create superiority where you can. The thing is, this would be much easier to do if you'd been here for a long time, if you've played a bunch of games and everybody's comfortable. It's a very hard thing to do. If you go with two holding, as Burns says, if you do different things, you've got to find a way to maintain the width with not just your wingbacks. And I think you bet on your wingers. And I know everybody's down on the wingers. Gustavo's not high on Marcelino Moreno as a winger. There are plenty of others who are with you there, Gustavo. I think he's done a lot of the job he's been asked to do. Not all of it. You want more. But I think he's done a lot of it. And I think you need him to do that part of the job here. You've got to make sure that Kai Wagner and Mbaizo cannot hurt you. You've got to pin them deep. You've got to make Philly have to play long balls, because as much as I like Kasper Shabilko, if you're turning him into a target number 9, I don't think he hurts you as much.
Yeah, and we saw that with Chicago.
Yeah.
And we saw that late against Chicago, where all Chicago was left doing was bombing it deep and trying to get something happening with Barrich posting up basically and going up against the Atlanta United backline.
Part of the trick is with that also is winning the second ball, because you trust Miles Robinson and Anton Walks to win that header if it's a bombed ball, but then you're asking Sosa and Ibarra and Heinemann to be the guy, or Bello, or if it's Gurr, whoever it may be, Ronald Hernandez, don't know, honestly. Whoever it may be, I need you on top of that second ball, because they're going to win that header more often than not. But I need you to win that second ball and not let Fontana pick up a second ball and establish possession quickly, where Shabilko can roll off a Miles Robinson quickly.
That's going to be really key. I think we got questions in the Twitch pitch and maybe on Twitter, John.
We do. A couple of things from not Kefsi. Kefsi likes Jake and Marcelino in terms of physical play and defending if they're on the wings.
Yeah, I think the wings become critical, and that's why you could see something more unique in how you deal with this. I'm just really curious because I don't have anything to go on with how Heinze has dealt with a diamond. Because, I mean, Gustavo, correct me if I'm wrong here. I can't think of an Argentine team that plays a 4-4-2 diamond. I mean, there's not a ton of teams that do it worldwide. Salzburg, Leipzig do it some. You'll see some teams break it out occasionally. Jim Curtin has done really, really well with it, and he's got the right players for it. The Martinez, Montero, Bedoya part of it is great. With Aronson, it was amazing. You got to get Fontana up to that level, or you got to play Leon Flack, the young American they brought in from St. Pauli, who seems to be getting the opportunity over Fontana, but what that does is it makes you more defensive, which I think helps Atlanta. So you want the width, and you've got to find a way to get the width. And if you do this kind of setup, you can definitely have your normal width. If you do a 3-5-2 or if you do a 4-3-3, you've got to make sure you're on point in other spots, but you've got to find a way to maintain width. I think it's essential for Atlanta to be as successful as they can be here.
To Gustavo's point, quickly, and to a lot of people's point about Marcelino Moreno, I think there is a formation that we haven't seen yet, and I'd be curious to see it myself, of like a 4-3-3, where if you're trying to get really attacking, where you're putting Barco and Marcelino Moreno in the middle together in front of Sosa, and playing someone else out on the wing, and having dual eights in that sense, for lack of a better explanation, I guess.
Yeah.
Although Jake Mulroney on the wing, I like what I've seen from Mulroney. I wonder if it's going to be Dom. Dom is the kind of guy, and as much as you talk about Moreno pinning a guy in, Dom can pin you in as well with his speed. It's a different element, I think, just because of what Moreno brings on the dribble, because there are a few people on this hemisphere who can dribble as successfully as Marcelino Moreno. What did we, 6 successful dribbles the other day?
6 of 13.
And which is good. I mean, better than most of us could ever do. But I do wonder if it is Dom, and you're asking his speed to kind of keep a guy like Wagner in check.
He could.
Because you don't want to get in a situation where Philadelphia turns it over, and then Wagner's fast, but that's a lot to ask of anybody.
It's a variant we haven't seen. I mean, you've got the personnel to do it if you wanted to play Dom and Mulroney wide, or, you know, if Machop Chol comes into the mix or whatever, you've got wingers who can play there. Eric Lopez.
Yeah, I don't mean to imply they'll do that tomorrow, but it's something you could do in the future.
Yeah, it's something you could do. I mean, and then you could bring Barco and Marcelino as the 2 central midfielders. I think Marcelino out wide has worked. He did play it at Lanús before they moved him back into the middle. I like that it creates the 1v1s. I was telling Gustavo on the Twitch pitch that, you know, I thought maybe even they were trying to force him on the 1v1 a little bit too much on Saturday to try to get him going against Sekulic, but it did keep Sekulic occupied. And I think that was a really important element of it. And it's part of what you're going to do. Philly just presents a different challenge because they're not really a wide team. Their width comes from the outside backs. If you keep them from getting forward, they're going to only really be able to play through the middle unless people start drifting out wide, and it makes it easier for you to deal with.
And Jarrett, we have, let's see, Not Kefsi wants to know who's going to watch the Glesnes cannon. in the match tomorrow.
No part of that. I'm not getting in that wall.
No. All right. So, Jared, let me ask you this: wild card. Who do you think, if that 11 is as Jason has laid it out in his mind, who do you think could be folks who could contribute, knowing what we're looking at with Philadelphia? Who in that 18 do you think could be one of the wild cards that could be trouble for Philadelphia coming off the bench?
If he's in the 18, I do like him a Chope Chol in that situation.
He won't be. He won't be.
He won't be?
He won't be. He was listed as out, I believe, on the notes.
Well, never mind.
Sorry.
He's such a unique individual, though. That's such a wild card to throw in just about anybody. I believe Mo Adams is still out as well.
Yep.
He's another one that's I miss seeing Mo Adams as a depth piece on this team.
Yeah.
That's still such a good move. Go back and go ahead. Keep talking about the front office. Go ahead.
I mean, for me, you've got guys like Jake and Jack that could be a part of the discussion too.
I'm thinking honestly, I don't know if you give Lisandro Lopez the start in this game, but Lisandro Lopez, even off the bench in some capacity, with the way he can kind of drop back, and he's been more pass first as we've gone over, but the way he can kind of pull on your shape a bit. I wonder if Lisandro Lopez comes into this game, and even if he doesn't impact this game as like a guy who comes in and gets a goal and assist in 30 minutes, if he kind of unbalances things a bit for Philadelphia because of what he can do.
Yeah,
that's assuming you don't. Go ahead.
No, I think you're on to something, because the way that I've laid it out, like you could go 3-5-2, you could go 4-3-3, you could go really bold and go 3-4-3 diamond. That's the most wild card type of option you could go with. That would be the least likely, just because I don't know if you've really had a chance to even talk about it much. You might opt to keep it simple and stick with your 4-3-3 and just have Sosa understand that, look, he's got to kind of play two roles here. And if that's the case, that's the case. That's the simplest way. That's the easiest thing. But you're going to be looking, especially on the Atlanta side, at changes you can make to change the game. And that could be, quite a few different looks. We don't know about Ronald Hernandez. He's not listed as being out. Could he be somebody you bring on late? If you have Jack Gurr on that right side, you could give fresh legs with Hernandez. You've got Lisandro Lopez. You've got potentially Eric Lopez, who I thought looked pretty comfortable on Saturday night. I was impressed with Eric Lopez.
Eric Lopez is a good shout.
Yeah, you could go to him. You've got it's a little bit more of a wild card, but you've got a Jackson Conway who allows you to play long if you want to. You've got a Kubo Torres who's a little bit of a post-up number 9. You've got some different things you can do off the bench depending on what the game calls for it. And you'll have those options centrally. If you don't start Ibarra, if you go with the same starting lineup, let's say, with the exception of somebody replacing Lennon. If you go with that, you would have Ibarra coming off the bench. You could go to the diamond in midfield if you need to. Like, you could make whatever changes you need to make. You've got the personnel to do it. The buttons that Gabriel Heinze pushes at halftime and in the second half could go a long way to deciding who gets through here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks on the Twitch pitch from the beginning of our episode were wondering about what it's going to look like at the back without Brooks Lennon. And obviously with Hasechu still getting integrated with everything now that he has his green card. I mean, a lot of different names were being thrown out. Do we see Hernandez? Is it the same guys that are there? Do you mess with starting someone other than Anton Walks, or do you continue to go with the momentum that they've built? A lot of folks are focused on two parts: the back line and what it looks like, and then what it looks like on the wings and how it could integrate with what Philadelphia is going to be coming at you with. I mean, just in general, that's what folks are concerned about when it comes to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think with Philly, Shabilko scares you because I think he's one of the most complete forwards in the league. Him and Baric have a lot of similarities. He handled Baric pretty well. I think you can do the same here. Montero's the one who maybe worries me because, especially if he's in an 8 role and in one of the shuttler roles of the diamond as opposed to the 10. I think the 10 he's a little bit easier to deal with. If he's one of those mix guys, he's tough because he pops up in good spots. He reads the game really, really well and knows when to make that run and when to stay. He's the one who can unbalance you the most, in my opinion. He's good on the dribble as well. Wagner can unbalance you when he gets forward. You've got to worry about those things about Philly. Bedoya, I think you know what to expect, but he's just really good at it. He's just really, really good. And Bizo's a little bit of an unknown. I think you can get at them wide, especially if when Wagner goes, you try to attack behind his back. When you look long, when you win possession, when Wagner goes forward, you try to win it, and you try to immediately play down that right side. You try to make him think about going forward.
You also have who, for my personal opinion, is the best goalkeeper in this league between the sticks for Philadelphia.
Yeah, and he's the one that can ruin your day if you do everything right. Andre Blake can still ruin your day. He's just that good. You got to keep at it. Look, this team in the last couple of games has created, I think, 10 to 12 chances consistently in the last 3 games. It's good numbers. That's fine. You got to keep at that. You got to keep creating better chances, and you've got to do what you did against Chicago. You've got to get more numbers into the 18, more numbers into the box, more numbers into the final third, so you get a goal like Heinemann did at the end to put that thing away.
Yeah, Jarrett, and I think that this pretty much sums up the whole match idea and the whole idea against Philadelphia. Joe Boss says that this match will be tactically, it will be fascinating. And I think that that's probably the best way to describe what we're going to be looking at with Philadelphia and Atlanta United.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it should be a lot of fun. I say don't worry yourself sick over it. Have fun with it. It should be a lot of fun for a match, and it could be a match that is kind of a precursor for the rest of the season. You might see these two teams again battling it out, near the end of the season. They might get matched up in the playoffs. These are two teams that, especially early in the season, you're looking at thinking like these could be, what Philadelphia is for the most part. You're still trying to replace a couple key pieces, but it's still a good team, and you trust Jim Curtin to get them where they need to be. And then Atlanta's looked fun. This could be kind of a precursor for what you're looking at for the rest of the season, maybe in the playoffs in round 1 or 2. It could be a lot of fun. So, enjoy it, if nothing else. It should be a lot of fun with a lot of talent on the field. One of the questions I have for them is, how much does Alejandro Bedoya have left in the tank?
Yeah.
Like, at what point does it run out? Like, I thought Philadelphia handled things to a T with Harris Medunjanin. They cut bait on Medunjanin at literally the perfect time. Are they going to do the same with Bedoya? Do they hang on a little too long? Do they cut the leash a little too short? Like, I don't know where it is for him because that cliff can be kind of hard to see. But as long as he's still doing what he does, he's a problem.
Yeah. And then who can be the super sub since you won't have El Seno now?
That is sad. I do like seeing El Seno come on, and then Philadelphia's like, we're just going to change what we do for El Seno. And El Seno is just going to be El Seno.
It could be Fontana if they do what they've done so far and have him come from the bench. Now, they're going to, this is their road leg. They're trying to manage it. It wouldn't be a shock to see Flock get the start. He's the more defensive option. Play him and Martinez where they sit a little bit more, and your diamond turns a little bit more into a box with Bedoya and Montero stepping up a little bit higher to flip it. That would make a lot of sense for them. It'd be safer to have 2 holding midfielders essentially rather than 1, and use Fontana as that late game sub. They really haven't shown us a whole lot outside of that in terms of guys who could be a surprise coming off the bench. Sergio Santos has played up top, but he's also come off the bench. Fontana started up top in one of the CONCACAF games. He started at the point of the diamond in another one. You don't really have anybody else without El Seno. So I'm thinking they go with Flack getting the start, Fontana coming off the bench, and I'm almost wondering if maybe they even go with Fontana starting and have Santos coming off the bench if they want. I don't know. I want to see what Jim Curtin does too. Like, he's not going to change the shape as much, but He could change the personnel and make it look different I think Heinze will change the shape that we've seen in the last couple games, but how bold will he go with those changes? It is a chess match between the two.
And it's going to be a fun chess match. Really quickly, for those who are interested in this kind of material, and we always do this, it's the first of the two matches on Tuesday night. The late one is Cruz Azul and Toronto. Right now, Cruz Azul is at a minus 101. Toronto is a plus 233. Your draw is a plus 274 right now, and this is according to our friends at mybookie.ag. I don't know what country that's based in off the top of my head. But Atlanta United listed as a minus 112 to win. Philadelphia a plus 295, and your draw is a plus 247. So that's what the early numbers look like in this one.
It feels about right. Like I think Atlanta should get the win here, and they're going to be expected to get the win here, and they need to get the win here because of the layout. They've looked better than Philadelphia. I think people were trying to make a narrative out of, well, Philadelphia beat Saprissa by this big score. Well, then when Alajuelense played...
Saprissa was not Saprissa.
No, and Alajuelense played Saprissa like right after it and beat them 5-0. And Saprissa's manager got fired, and they hired a guy, and they got cold feet, and they hired him again. It was bizarre the way they handled Roy Myers getting fired.
Costa Rica so much.
It's craziness. But, Saprissa got waxed by Alajuelense, like right after they got waxed by Philly. So,
yep.
I think Atlanta's been the better team of the two, but they got to take care of business at home because this setup, it is so different. It's not a traditional 4-4-2 in my mind. And I think Heinze approaches it differently than he did against Alajuelense. How differently? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But this is the biggest tactical change that we could potentially see so far. And I just can't wait to see how that part plays out.
Jarrett, last thoughts before we go.
Like I said, just enjoy it. Don't worry yourself sick over it.
I'm worried sick over it, Jarrett.
I can send you a bottle of Pepto-Bismol if you want.
No, I don't like Pepto. I'll be okay.
Tastes like chalk. Tastes like a chalkboard.
I'll be okay.
It's like a liquid Necco wafer.
Yeah, it's no good.
Think about that for a while. Go to bed with that thought. It should be a lot of fun. Atlanta's speed and ability to stretch things out, I think, makes this a lot of fun. Philadelphia's ability to run a tsunami wave over you in the middle makes it a lot of fun. Like Jason said, I think it is a chess match. Leg 2 might be even more so, especially depending on how leg 1 looks. If you can imagine, let's say leg 1 doesn't go perfectly for Atlanta United. Imagine leg 2 where Atlanta has to go into Philadelphia and just start the cavalry charge early and what that looks like.
Yeah, the question is how cagey are you in leg 1? If you're Gabriel Heinze, do you decide to be conservative here? That's not his MO. It's not how he generally approaches things. Gustavo, final one he threw in on the Twitch pitch, could Philadelphia change their shape? We have seen them play in a 4-2-3-1 with Ilsinho. In the 2019 playoffs, I think it made Philly worse when they went to the 4-2-3-1. You knew it was coming. We talked about it all week. It's like 60th minute. It'll be Ilsinho. They'll switch out of the diamond. They'll go to the 4-2-3-1. They were less effective then. Atlanta had more control of the game after that. And they don't have the personnel to do it right now. They've got a bunch of central players. They've got a bunch of like interiores and like central midfielders. They don't really have wingers. So I think they have to roll with what they do. And I think Atlanta can find a way. It could look a little rocky in the first 10, 15.
The back line, baby.
Yeah, and the diamond's tough because it kind of eliminates some of that space. You create more lines. It's hard to find the space between the lines. You find the space out wide. You want to take that diamond and stretch it out. You want to either flatten it or stretch it out, and you want to find the space that way. But you've got to stay committed to it. And it's just going to take work. It could look really rocky in 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. It absolutely could. You've got to keep at it to break them apart. You just have to.
And we will be keeping an eye on it here at SDH. That is another round of the run-up as we get you ready for Philadelphia Union coming to Mercedes-Benz Stadium to take on Atlanta United. If you're going, have fun, be safe.
Don't throw beer.
Enjoy it.
You'll get ejected.
No,
Please don't throw beer.
That's bad
We won't
form.
feel bad for you.
No,
Kevsey says it's been Footy Mob has really said, don't throw beer or you will be ejected.
Yes, yes. So no throwing of beer, so you don't get ejected, and you never know where it lands anyway. So that's another round of the run up. We'll keep you posted on everything here at SDH involving Atlanta United, Philadelphia Union. Leg 1, CONCACAF Champions League. It is the next round, and it is that much more important. For Jason, for Jarrett, I'm John. Thanks for hanging out with us on the run up. Play it safe, everybody. Enjoy the game.